Okay, let's unpack this. If you are um, deeply invested in your CRM, specifically Go High Level, you know there's a configuration that sounds incredibly simple, but breaks with, well, with infuriating regularity.
It's always email reply forwarding, isn't it?
It is.
It's the Achilles heel of an otherwise, brilliant automation platform. You do everything right. You configure the custom domain, you set up the workflow that says when a customer replies, notify the client, and then you just hit the snag.
Exactly. The consistent feedback we see, and the problem we are really solving for you today, is that when that client reply comes in, your team gets a notification email, but it doesn't contain the actual message text.
Right.
It just says, hey, someone sent you an email reply. Click here to open the unified inbox.
Which completely defeats the purpose of forwarding in the first place. Your client, who lives in Gmail or Outlook all day, has to stop what they're doing, switch context, log into GHL,
Find the conversation.
find the conversation, just to read maybe 2 sentences. It's not efficient. What you need, what everyone needs, is the full critical reply content printed directly in the body of their real email inbox.
So that is our mission today. How do we get that full reply content delivered externally while simultaneously ensuring that reply remains perfectly visible, logged, and, ready for further automation inside the GHL Conversations unified inbox?
Yeah, this isn't about general deliverability tips. This is about getting under the hood and understanding GHL's internal routing architecture. We have to build a stable, canonical workflow that survives software updates and avoids those frustrating link-only notifications.
And to do that, we have to start with the foundational concepts. The source material we've got here provided a great analogy, treating email routing like traditional postal mail, which I think really establishes the core concepts clearly for you.
It really does. It simplifies the complexity instantly. When you send mail, you have 2 key identifiers on the envelope.
The first one is simple, right? The from address, that's just the return address printed on the outside.
Exactly. It tells the recipient who mailed it. And crucially, it needs to align with the system that sent it to avoid, the dreaded spam filters.
But the truly critical piece of information, the one that controls our entire deep dive today, is the reply to address.
Think of this as a special instruction card that you place inside the envelope, and it says, if you want a response, send it here. It dictates where the response actually lands when the customer hits that reply button.
And the place where all this mail gets processed is the Conversations tab. That's your CRM's central sophisticated mailroom. Everything that matters has to be logged and routed right there.
Which brings us to GHL's essential tool, the GHL tracking address. This is that cryptic-looking email address.
Yeah, the web at lc.google.com or something like that.
Exactly. Something at replies.your-subdomain.com. We can just call it the special P.O. box. Its entire singular job is to automatically receive the reply, scan it for content, file it under the correct contact, and capture that content into the CRM.
Okay, so if you grasp that analogy, then the core conflict of GHL routing becomes crystal clear.
Absolutely. The critical insight is this. If replies go to that special P.O. box, the GHL tracking address, the system controls the intake pipeline. It captures the full content, and it can display it in conversations.
Right.
But if replies go directly to a normal inbox that GHL doesn't control, the system just loses visibility of the actual content. That is, unless you introduce these complex sort of bolt-on synchronization systems.
And that distinction is basically the map between stable routing, which we'll call scenario A, and, frustrating complexity.
Scenario B, yeah. The frustrating one.
So let's look at the territory. Where do we start? If we want GHL to take the lead, this is scenario A. Act as the mailbox, or GHL first.
Right. So in this scenario, GHL is your corporate mail department. It owns the reply path from start to finish. The outbound emails, they look like they're coming from the client's regular address, but that crucial reply to header that's pointing directly at GHL's P.O. box for tracking.
Okay, so this is clearly the preferred path for any agency, any business that wants their team operating within GHL Conversations, right?
Right. If you need that one source of truth and you want reliable automation using the customer replied trigger, this is it.
And for the customer, what do they see?
Nothing different. The experience is seamless. They just click reply like they always do, and their message routes straight back to that tracked thread endpoint. They never even see that internal P.O. box address.
And for the admin?
The replies automatically land in conversations, ready for assignment or workflow execution. And this setup holds the key, the real key, to solving the full content delivery problem.
Okay, so how do we do it? What's the setting?
The key setting here is the forwarding address. You find this under GHL settings in email services. When you put your client's Google Workspace or Outlook address in there, you're telling GHL, okay, keep the replying conversations, but also send a copy to this external inbox.
So the system is performing two actions based on a single inbound message. It's logging it internally and sending a separate notification externally.
Precisely. That guarantees conversation visibility.
Yeah.
It's GHL's native, stable behavior. Now, this is the critical clarification we need to make for you. If the forwarding address does what we want, what's the danger of using the reply address setting instead? They sound similar.
That's a great question. If I set the reply address to my Gmail, what happens?
You reroute everything. You send the replies away from conversations entirely. The inbound reply bypasses the GHL tracking address, that special P.O. box, which means GHL never scans the content or logs it natively.
So you've actively forced yourself into scenario B.
Instantly. And you've lost your single source of truth. For stability and for the native GHL features, the forwarding address in scenario A is really the only choice.
That one distinction is probably worth the whole deep dive. It explains why so many beginner workflows just fail. Okay, let's tackle that other confusion, the tracking address itself. web@lc.google.com. Why the extra subdomain? Why does GHL make the address look so weird?
It's a fundamentally technical necessity, disguised as a weird email address. It's all about aligned authentication and reply capture.
Let's break down the authentication piece first.
Yeah.
You mentioned SBS, DKIM, DMRC. For someone who wants to sound informed but doesn't want to get bogged down in DNS records, what does that mean?
Simply put, it means we're making sure the return address on the envelope, the from domain, and the system processing the response, the reply to domain, they match up perfectly. GHL uses that LC subdomain because it's part of their own infrastructure.
And if they align?
Spam filters trust the message. If they don't, the message gets flagged. It looks like someone is trying to send mail using your domain, but telling replies to go somewhere totally unrelated. It looks like spoofing.
So it's a security and a deliverability mechanism. GHL has basically created this tightly controlled ecosystem to make sure every reply gets where it needs to go without getting lost.
Exactly. And that control is the second key function, reply capture. Since GHL controlled that P.O. box mailbox, it can instantly receive, process, and match the reply to the correct contact thread. And the source material is very clear on this.
What's the critical fact?
The only way to get customer reply messages into the Conversations tab natively is when the customer replies to that tracked LC address. If you bypass it, GHL can't see the reply. It's blind.
Okay, that makes perfect sense for us, but the client needs a simpler explanation. We can't start talking about DMRC alignment when we're training a new sales rep.
Oh, absolutely not. The simple explanation we give is this. We use a special digital concierge behind the scenes. Its job is to ensure your customer's reply is instantly filed into the CRM so your whole team sees the full history and can respond faster.
I like that. Digital concierge.
Then you just click reply like normal. The system handles the filing automatically. That reframes the complexity as a high-value organizational feature.
That's the perfect bridge. Okay, now let's briefly acknowledge the other territory. Scenario B, inbox first. This is the path of complexity, but we need to understand it for comparison.
This scenario is where the external inbox, your Gmail, your Outlook, is the primary system of record. We can call it the home office analogy. This is what happens when you use that GHL reply address setting we warned you about. You're actively rerouting mail away from conversations.
But why would anyone choose this if GHL first is so much more stable?
There are a few edge cases. It's for clients who truly refuse to work inside GHL. Maybe they have a huge team that works entirely in a shared Gmail inbox, or they have strict compliance or legal archiving rules that say their own mailbox has to be the first destination.
Okay, but the consequence for the CRM admin is pretty severe, right? Wait, if the admin replies from Gmail in scenario B, GHL doesn't see that reply.
Not by default, no. That's the flaw. Your Conversations tab becomes secondary and incomplete. Unless you add another system on top, every email the admin sends from their external inbox is just lost to the CRM history.
So to make scenario B even remotely functional, you have to supplement it with two-way sync.
Correct. Two-way sync creates a bridge, pulling both inbound replies and outbound sends between the external inbox and the CRM. So when a reply hits Gmail, GHL makes a copy in Conversations, but this has to be set up individually inside each sub-account, which immediately adds friction.
And this is where the source material is filled with horror stories, the headaches. We need to really hammer these friction points so you know exactly what you are signing up for.
The first major headache is threading weirdness. Gmail and GHL use different proprietary algorithms to figure out what belongs in the same email thread.
So what happens?
You end up with merged conversations that shouldn't be, or worse, split threads, where a customer's crucial second reply gets filed under a totally new contact entry. It just confuses the entire sales team.
I can picture that scenario leading to a lost lead right away.
Exactly. Imagine a client replies with updated contract details, but because their email subject line changed slightly, GHL files it as a brand new conversation. The admin only sees the first thread and totally misses the critical update.
That's a major operational risk.
What else?
Duplicates. The sync process, which is really just copying messages between two systems, can create duplicate records, especially when you have multiple recipients on a thread. It just gums up the whole contact history.
And since these messages aren't arriving via that native GHL PO box, I assume the automation reliability just tanks. Massively. Automation trigger inconsistency is a known issue. That customer-replied trigger, which is bulletproof in scenario A, becomes really unreliable when messages arrive via sync. Plus, two-way sync is rarely instantaneous. You get these frustrating sync delays.
Where you see it in Gmail, but it's not in the CRM yet.
Exactly. So you see the email in Gmail, but it takes 3 minutes to show up in conversations, leading to redundant follow-ups or confusion.
So if you choose the inbox first route, you're really choosing control over stability and native features. That brings us back to our core solution. Since our goal is stability, visibility in conversations, and the full content externally, Scenario A is the only foundation.
It is the only way to guarantee a reliable, scalable system inside GHL. Now let's give you the exact stable recipe to solve this link-only problem. We can break it down into 2 quick phases.
Phase 1, GHL settings configuration.
Go to Settings, then Email Services, then Reply and Forward Settings. You must set the forwarding address to the client's preferred external email address. And, this is crucial, leave the reply address field completely empty. Do not touch it.
Right, or you force Scenario B.
And touch it.
Okay, that gets the copy sent. Now, Phase 2 is building the custom workflow that guarantees we get the full content, not just that generic notification link.
Right. Create a new workflow. The trigger is straightforward, customer replied. Just make sure you filter it specifically by the channel, so channel email. The core action is a simple send email action directed to the client's preferred external inbox.
And the critical step here is what goes in the body of that email. This is the moment you came here for. We need to know why the system's native notification fails and why our custom workflow is going to succeed.
The native notification workflow, it often uses a template or variables that only pull metadata, like the contact's name, the thread link, the timestamp. It often deliberately excludes the message body because, well, it wants to force user adoption of the CRM.
So how do we force the system to give us the raw text?
By understanding the workflow variable scope. In the email body of your custom workflow, you have to use one specific variable, message.body. That's it. That variable directly accesses the raw input text of the customer's reply as it was captured by the GHL tracking address.
That is the key. Using message.body ensures the actual text of the customer's reply, word for word, is delivered to the client's external mailbox, solving the core pain point perfectly.
And because you use the forwarding address setting back in Phase 1, every single reply is automatically logged into conversations before this workflow even runs. The system stays pristine.
So what does this all mean? We've achieved the balance, native visibility in conversations, plus full content delivery to the external inbox, all through a stable custom workflow. But we have one final provocative thought based on a crucial limitation in the sources that has to guide your team's operations.
We fixed the text problem, but we haven't fixed the attachment problem. If the customer replies with an attachment, a crucial PDF, an invoice, a signed contract, the forwarded copy sent via GHL's forwarding address and via that custom workflow will not include the attachment.
Okay, so that means the admin client has to perform a slight operational shift.
Yeah.
If they see an email reply that looks thin or it refers to an external file, they must check the Conversations tab for the full, complete message.
Exactly. The external email copy is a convenience. It's for faster response triage. But GHL Conversations remains the legal, definitive, single source of truth for the entire record. If attachments are common in your industry, the team has to operate with the knowledge that the full context is always held in the CRM.
That's a wrap on our deep dive into GHL routing. Stay informed, stay ahead. Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're tackling a problem that I think has Probably given every Go High Level user a headache at some point.
Oh, for sure.
Email reply routing. You know exactly what I'm talking about. You
Yeah.
set up your dedicated domain, your DNS is perfect, everything looks great,
Yep, all the hard work.
and then a customer replies, and the notification you get,
Yeah.
it's just a link. It just says, hey, go look in the Conversations tab. There's no message body, nothing.
It's incredibly frustrating. And it feels like it should be simple, but the way GHL is built, it's fighting how a lot of us want to work.
Exactly. So our mission for this deep dive is to finally lay out the full picture, the technical recipe to get it right. We want replies showing up in both the Conversations tab for tracking and in your client's real inbox with the full message.
Right. And to do that, we have to understand this core tension. GHL wants to be the single source of truth. Everything lives in Conversations. But businesses, they live in Gmail or Outlook.
Okay, so to get our heads around this, we're going to use an analogy for this whole deep dive. Let's think of it all like sending postal mail.
That's the perfect way to look at it. You have your from address, which is like the return address on the envelope. Then you have the Conversations tab.
Mm-hmm.
Think of that as your central mailroom.
And the most important piece of this puzzle, the part that causes all the confusion, is what we're calling the GHL reply tracking address.
Yes, that's the special P.O. box. It's that weird-looking email like web@lc.google.com that GHL uses to automatically grab and file the reply. If you don't get how that P.O. box works, none of the fixes make any sense.
So let's start with the failure. The default snapshot workflow, the email reply notification. Why is it so, useless? Why just a link?
Because GHL isn't trying to be an email client, it's a CRM. So when a reply hits that special tracking address, its first job is to log that message against a contact record. The workflow that fires after that is just a notification. It's literally just a tap on the shoulder saying, hey, something new is waiting for you inside the CRM. It was never designed to forward the whole email.
That's such a key distinction. It's a notification, not a forward.
Exactly. And the content of that reply, the actual message body, it only lives in one place at that moment, inside Conversations. It got there because the customer's email client was told to reply to that special LC tracking address.
Okay, I have to stop you because this is a huge point of confusion. If I set up my beautiful hello at mydomain.com sending domain, why can't the reply just come straight back there? Why this weird tracking step?
That is the million-dollar question, and the answer is automation and threat association. If the reply went straight to your Gmail, High Level would have no idea it ever happened.
Right. It would be invisible to the system.
Completely. Unless you set up two-way sync, which, believe me, we will get to the headaches of that later. By forcing the reply to that tracking address, GHL guarantees it can log the message instantly and, most importantly, fire that customer replied trigger in your workflows.
So the tracking address is the handshake. It's the only way GHL knows for sure that a specific contact replied to a specific email thread.
It's non-negotiable for the CRM to work as intended. So the whole game becomes about this. How do we let GHL do its handshake, capture the content, and then build our own process to send that content where we really want it?
We have to get rid of that default workflow and build a custom one.
100%. Tear out the snapshot workflows and start fresh.
Okay, let's get into the fix. We're calling this scenario A the GHL first approach, or act as the mailbox. This is really the recommended stable way to do it.
In this scenario, you accept that GHL is the central mailroom. It owns the reply path. And the best part is your customer has no idea. They get an email from support@yourdomain.com, they hit reply, and it all just works.
But the agency owner, the person setting it up, they do see the complexity. They look at the email headers and they see that weird reply to address. It doesn't look as clean.
And that weird address is actually the key to making it all stable. That reply to header is literally the instruction card inside the envelope. GHL writes on that card, when you reply, send it to my special tracking P.O. box, not back to the original sender.
You also mentioned this is important for deliverability, not just tracking. Can you expand on that?
Absolutely. Spam filters love consistency. When the from domain and the reply to domain are authenticated and, aligned with each other, it looks legitimate. If an email comes from one place but asks you to reply to a completely random different server, that can look suspicious. It's a big red flag.
So this method keeps the spam filters happy and makes sure the reply gets tied to the right contact.
Exactly. It's the foundation for everything.
Okay, so if we're all in on scenario A, we go into GHL settings, email services, and find reply and forward settings. There are two big options there. Which one do we need?
For this to work, you absolutely must use the forwarding address field. The way to think about it is, You're telling the GHL mailroom, after you receive and file this letter, please send a complete photocopy to this other address.
It's like an automatic BCC almost.
Precisely. It keeps the original inside GHL for tracking, but sends a copy out for visibility.
So why do we want to avoid the other setting, the reply address, like the plague in this scenario?
Because setting the reply address is the nuclear option. It tells the mailroom to stop processing mail altogether and instead just slap a redirect sticker on everything. All replies get rerouted away from conversations directly to your external inbox.
And just like that, you've broken GHL's brain, the tracking is gone, the automations won't fire, you're forced into our dreaded scenario B.
You've completely bypassed the system. So yes, forwarding address is the key, but it doesn't solve the listener's original problem by itself.
Right. Because even the native forwarding can be a bit clunky. The formatting isn't great, and as high-level's own docs say, attachments often don't come through.
Exactly. So the basic forwarding gets you maybe halfway there. To get the full message body cleanly formatted, you need a custom workflow. This is the real secret sauce.
Okay, let's walk through the recipe. How do we build this custom workflow to finally solve the problem?
It's surprisingly simple once you know the trick. In workflows, your trigger is customer replied. Make sure you filter it just for the email channel.
Got it.
Then the action is send email. You'll send that email to whoever needs the notification, like your client. And here's the magic. In the body of that email you're creating, you use the custom value message.body. That's it.
There it is. So that variable pulls the full text that GHL just captured from the tracking address a few seconds earlier.
And prints it directly into the body of your new notification email. It completely bypasses the generic click here link and just gives you the raw content.
It's so simple when you see it. It feels like a workaround, but is really just using GHL's own data.
That's all it is. And with that, you have the perfect setup. The conversation is logged in GHL, your automations are reliable, and your client gets the full reply in their inbox.
Okay, that is a rock-solid solution for scenario A, but we should touch on the alternative, scenario B, for that client who just refuses to work inside high level.
Yeah, the inbox first approach. This is for when your hands are tied. You go into the settings and you use that nuclear option we talked about. You set the reply address to their real external inbox.
And what's the immediate cost? What breaks the second you do that?
Conversations becomes a ghost town. It's no longer the source of truth. And your customer replied triggers. Unreliable at best because the email never hits the GHL tracking address first.
So to get any of that communication back into the CRM, you are now completely dependent on two-way sync.
100%. You have to set up a sync between, say, their Gmail and GHL and just hope it can piece everything together after the fact.
And I know from experience, that's where the real headaches begin. Let's talk about the pitfalls of relying on that sync.
The first one is what I call threading weirdness. Gmail and Outlook organize conversations one way. GHL organizes them another way based on specific IDs. If a customer changes the subject line even slightly,
Which they do all the time.
the sync can get confused. It might break one conversation into two or create a brand new contact for an existing customer. It's a data cleanup nightmare.
Oh, I can just imagine the support tickets. What's the next pitfall?
Duplicates. Oh, the duplicates. If you have a group email, a reply all situation, the sync can just get overwhelmed and import the same message multiple times across different records. The official documentation is filled with warnings about this.
And what about the automation triggers? Can you trust them?
Honestly, no, not with the same reliability. The community is full of reports of triggers being delayed by minutes or hours or just not firing at all when the message comes in via sync. It's not as instantaneous as the direct tracking address.
Plus, the setup itself is a pain. You have to connect the sync inside each sub-account, right? You can't manage it from the agency level.
That's right. It pushes the risk and the management burden down to the sub-account level, which is not where you want it.
Wow. Okay, so to sum it up, Scenario A is stable, reliable, and keeps your automation sharp. Scenario B, it's a world of technical friction, data issues, and unreliable triggers.
For what you're trying to achieve, getting the full content externally while keeping CRM visibility, it has to be Scenario A. Use the forwarding address setting as your foundation, and then build that custom workflow with the message.body variable. That's the recipe.
Before we wrap, there's one last thing, the client-facing piece. How do you explain that weird web at lc.google.com address to a non-technical person without scaring them?
You reframe it as a benefit. You don't get into the technical weeds. You call it their digital concierge.
I like that.
You tell them, look, that special address is our secure routing system.
Mm-hmm.
It ensures your reply is instantly and correctly filed in your record with us. It lets our whole team see the history and respond faster. You just hit reply, like always, and our concierge takes care of the filing.
That's brilliant. It turns a technical requirement into a customer service feature.
Exactly. So the final summary is this. If you want the full reply in an external inbox and you want it logged in conversations, you have to use that combination. Forwarding address setting plus a custom workflow using message.body. Any other path is just asking for trouble.
We've gone way past the basic deliverability guides here and really decoded the architecture. You should now have the exact step-by-step plan to get this configured the right way, the stable way. And here's the final thought I want to leave you with. We've talked about how this custom workflow can forward the message body, but HighLevel's own documentation warns that attachments are often lost in any kind of forward. They're only guaranteed to be visible inside the Conversations tab. So you have to ask yourself, how much of your business depends on attachments? Are they contracts, invoices, critical documents? And if they are, is the convenience of staying in an external inbox worth the risk of losing that crucial documentation? That is the real trade-off you need to consider.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are jumping straight into what I think is a classic agency headache.
Oh, for sure.
The go high-level email reply paradox. I mean, it sounds so simple on the surface, right? You send an email, you get a reply.
It should be that easy.
But getting that reply to show up in the Conversations tab and delivering the full message to, say, a client's Gmail inbox, well, it often feels like you're fighting the platform itself.
It truly does. We've seen, hundreds of posts about this. The problem isn't even about deliverability, Your authenticated domain is fine. The emails go out perfectly.
Right.
But when the customer hits reply, the system either seems to hide the full text from the client or, even worse, the reply just misses the Conversations tab completely.
Exactly. And our sources show this knowledge, this fix. It's almost like a secret handshake among GHL power users. They know where the default templates, and we're talking about snapshots here.
Yeah, the agency templates.
They know where they just quietly break the chain. You install a workflow for reply notifications, and instead of the text, your client just gets a cryptic link to log in to the CRM.
Which is completely useless. For a client who just wants to check a response on their phone, it's not helpful. They need the message, not homework.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission today is to cut through all that confusion, dedicated sending domains, DNS records, the reply to header, and give you the canonical, correct way to set this up.
And we really have to start with the fundamental mental model. This isn't just about general email protocols. It's really specific to GHL's mailroom and how it's structured. If you get the routing, the fix becomes obvious.
You shared a great analogy when we were prepping for this, the postal mail analogy. I think that really simplifies the whole thing.
Right. So just think of the email you're sending out as a physical envelope.
Okay, so the from address is simple. That's the return address you print on the outside of the envelope. It's what the customer sees first.
Correct. But the really crucial piece is the reply to header. That's not on the outside. It's like an instruction card you tuck inside the envelope that says, if you want a response, send it here.
Got it. And the customer's email client, like Gmail or Outlook, it reads that card and sends the reply to that specific address.
Precisely. And that's what dictates where the reply actually lands. Now let's talk destinations. The Conversations tab in GHL, think of that as the CRM's central mailroom.
Okay.
Everything that arrives there gets scanned, logged, and filed under the right contact record. And this is key. It triggers your automations.
And the key to making sure a reply gets filed in that mailroom is that kind of weird-looking address you see sometimes.
Yes, the GHL tracking address. It looks something like web@lc.google.com or similar. That LC stands for lead connector. That address is your special, digitally managed P.O. box.
Ah, a P.O. box. I like.
If the customer's reply goes to that P.O. box, GHL instantly captures the full content, files it in the mailroom, and flags it as a tracked reply.
That P.O. box concept really clarifies the core conflict then. The system is intentionally designed so that all the magic only happens if the reply goes to that specific tracking address.
That is the conflict in a nutshell. And that's exactly why those default email reply notification workflows always fail.
How so?
Well, if the reply content is captured only by that special P.O. box, the workflow trigger fires, sure, but the only piece of information it can reliably share externally is a link to the record inside the mailroom.
So it's filed the letter, but it won't give you a copy. It just tells you which filing cabinet it's in.
Perfect analogy. You see the dilemma. You have to choose a canonical path. You either route replies to the tracking address for that perfect conversation's visibility,
Or
or you route them directly to the client's external inbox for them to see it immediately. Trying to do both with the default settings is where, you know, 90% of the confusion comes from.
so the system basically forces you to decide which mailbox is the real source of truth?
Yes. And for predictable automations and, frankly, for long-term agency stability, one of those paths is far, far superior.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's dive into that superior path. Scenario A, GHL as the canonical mailbox. This is probably the solution that most agencies should be using.
Absolutely. In scenario A, we make sure GHL owns the reply path. The outbound email still says it's from the client's professional address, but we deliberately set the hidden reply to that GHL tracking address.
Which locks the whole reply mechanism to the CRM.
Exactly. This is the best setup for, well, almost everyone. Sales teams, lead follow-up, any process where that customer reply trigger is essential. It keeps that single source of truth inside the CRM.
And from the customer's point of view, it's totally seamless, right?
Completely normal. They get an email from client at clientdomain.com, they hit reply, and their email client just sends it to the tracking address without them even knowing. It's totally transparent.
Okay, so we've locked the reply path to GHL, but my client still needs to see that reply in their Gmail. What's the simplest lever we can pull to make that happen?
The first and simplest lever is a native setting. It's under Settings, Email Services, A Reply and Forward Settings. You'll see a field called Forwarding Address.
Okay, so that's step one. We just put the client's external email in there.
That's it. When you do that, GHL captures the reply into conversations first, then the system automatically sends a copy to that external inbox. It's really reliable for just notifying the client that a reply came in.
But, and this is a big but, based on the docs we looked at, just using that setting alone can be a bit hit or miss with the content. Sometimes you get formatting issues or incomplete text.
That's the nuance. Yeah, that's what separates the power users.
Yeah.
If you want a 100% guarantee that the client gets the full, clean reply body every time, you have to build a custom workflow.
Okay, so walk us through that specific workflow build, the bulletproof version.
It starts simply. The trigger is customer replied. And you want to filter that by the channel, so you set the channel to email.
Right.
Then the action is send email. And you send it to the client's external inbox, client at googleworkspace.com or whatever it is.
Now, this is the part that fixes the broken snapshot problem. The default templates use the wrong variable, don't they?
They do. They typically use a variable like conversation.link or maybe contact.link. This just creates a clickable hyperlink back to the CRM.
It tells the client where the reply is, not what the reply says.
Useless for a quick read on your phone, which is why the custom email body is so critical. The key mapping, the variable you must use is message.body.
That's the magic wand right there.
That's it. That one variable tells the workflow to pull the customer's exact response out of conversations and just paste it directly into the notification email that the client gets.
That one detail is the fix. It's the difference between sending a link and sending the actual message.
It is. But, and this is a vital warning we found, HighLevel's own documentation says that forwarded replies, whether you use the setting or this custom workflow, they typically do not include attachments.
Oh, wow. That's a huge clarification.
Huge! If a customer replies with a PDF or an image, the client will still need to log into the Conversations tab to actually see it.
So you have to manage that expectation up front. Tell the client, for attachments, you have to check the dashboard.
Absolutely. Scenario A is optimized for text and for automation triggers, not for sharing files to a forward.
Okay, let's pivot. Let's talk about the other camp, the client who just refuses to use the CRM. They live in Outlook, they hate opening another tab, and they demand their inbox is the system of record. Let's look at Scenario B inbox first.
Right. Scenario B means you just accept that replies are going to land in the client's real inbox first. You do this by setting the reply address in GHL to their external email, like jen.doe@outlook.com.
And the second you do that, poof, all that native LC tracking magic is just gone.
Gone. The immediate consequence is that replies bypass conversations entirely. They aren't tracked, the activity log is incomplete, and your customer reply triggers just stop working reliably.
So if a client insists on this, how do we even try to get those replies back into conversations?
The only way is to implement two-way sync. This creates a connection between, say, their Gmail account and GHL, and it tries to monitor the external inbox and push a copy of the reply back into the CRM.
It's basically trying to trick GHL into thinking it caught the reply itself.
It is, but as you can imagine, this introduces a whole host of headaches. You're now trying to get two completely different systems to agree on what a conversation thread looks like.
This is where it gets messy. I remember you saying you spent hours debugging one of these.
Oh yeah. The biggest headache is what I call threading weirdness. Gmail and GHL have their own secret sauce for grouping messages. If a customer replies but slightly changes the subject line.
Or add someone to the CC line.
Exactly. Gmail might start a new thread, but GHL might try to merge it, or vice versa. It becomes a fractured, confusing timeline inside the CRM.
And then there's the issue of duplicates, I imagine.
Oh, big time. Duplicates. If the sender already exists in the system, the sync can easily create a duplicate contact record. High-level zone docs even call this out as a known issue that can really mess with your data hygiene.
So because we're relying on an external system, the automations from Scenario A are now basically useless.
That's the operational killer. The customer replied trigger becomes inconsistent, or it's so delayed that it's not useful for immediate follow-up. Plus, you get sync delays. The client sees the reply instantly, but the CRM might not see it for several minutes.
So Scenario B might make the client happier in the short term because they stay in their inbox, but it makes the agency's job exponentially harder.
Precisely. You trade agency efficiency for client preference, and you risk the integrity of your data in the process.
That makes it pretty clear why Scenario A is the way to go. Let's circle back and address that specific user question. Why do they see those weird webs at lc.google.com addresses, that lead connector subdomain?
This brings us right back to the technical truth behind that special P.O. box. It's all about the difference between the from address and that all-important reply to tracking address.
And the LC subdomain is for authentication.
Exactly. It stands for lead connector, and it's used for what's called aligned authentication.
Okay, break that down. Why is alignment so critical for DMARC and DKIM?
Think of it like this. When an email server like Gmail receives a message, it checks two signatures. It checks who the email says it's from, and it checks who digitally signed it.
Okay.
If your email says it's from clientdomain.com, but the digital signature comes from a totally different unaligned server, spam filters get very suspicious.
It looks like a forgery.
It looks exactly like a forgery. The LC tracking address ensures that the domain sending the email and the domain the reply goes back to are both properly authenticated under one roof. It's GHL's way of vouching for the email.
And this technical necessity, it's really worth repeating because it explains the core constraint of the whole system.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the only way to get customer replies into the Conversations tab natively, instantly, reliably, triggering all your automations, is when the customer replies to that LC tracking address. It's the secure gateway.
So when an admin has to explain this to a non-technical client, what's the simple way to phrase it?
I use the digital concierge analogy. You just tell the client, we use a special reply routing address behind the scenes. Think of it like a digital concierge that instantly files the reply in your central system so the team can respond faster.
And you mentioned it helps keep emails out of spam.
Exactly. It's a necessary step to make sure your emails don't get flagged as junk mail. You assure them they just hit a reply like normal, and the system handles the rest. It builds trust.
So what does this all mean? At the end of the day, the most stable, predictable solution is clearly Scenario A.
Without a doubt.
You make GHL the canonical mailbox, use the tracking address, and you build that custom workflow to inject the message.body into a notification email.
Yep. We've laid out the consequences pretty clearly. Scenario A is lower complexity. It has reliable automations. Scenario B, with two-way sync, is higher complexity, more moving parts, and a lot of potential for inconsistent automation.
And to repeat that critical detail one last time, remember the attachments. They're only viewable inside conversations. A client has to be trained to look in the CRM for any files.
The whole system is designed around that track thread, that contact journey.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you to explore. We've focused entirely on how to handle replies within an existing thread. But what happens if a customer starts a brand new email and sends it directly to that GHL tracking address?
Yeah, that's a great question. Since that address is designed to capture a reply and match it to an existing conversation, does a cold inbound email to that address even work? Does it find its way to the right contact? Or does it become an orphan message that needs totally different handling?
A fascinating edge case to test out. Food for thought for your next round of experiments. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. We really hope this cuts through the confusion and saves you a few hours of debugging.
Until next time, keep optimizing those workflows.
Welcome back to the deep dive. So, You've sent us your source documents, community forum threads, pages and pages of troubleshooting notes, and they all point to one incredibly frustrating Go High Level or GHL problem.
It really is the classic paradox of these big, powerful CRM systems.
Mm-hmm.
GHL gives you this unified inbox, the Conversations tab, which is, I mean, it's amazing for tracking leads and seeing the full history of a contact.
Right.
But the moment a customer actually replies to an email, you suddenly want two things that GHL seems built to stop you from having at the same time.
Exactly. First, you want the full body of that reply, the actual text, delivered to your client's normal inbox, their Gmail or their Outlook.
And second, you need guaranteed instant logging of that same reply right inside the GHL Conversations tab so your automations fire.
And that's where you, our listener, are stuck. You send an email, the reply comes in, and the only thing that hits the external inbox is this frustrating little notification that just says, hey, someone replied, click here to see it.
Mm-hmm. No message text.
No message text at all, and that just completely breaks the workflow for any sales team that actually lives in their inbox.
And what's so interesting here is that this isn't, a simple setting you just missed. This whole conflict happens because GHL, at its core, is designed to be the canonical mailbox. It wants to own the entire conversation.
So the default setups, the snapshots, they're working against you.
They're working against that external visibility, yeah. They prioritize GHL's ownership, which is why you get that infamous link-only notification email.
Okay, so we are here to cut right through that. Our mission for this deep dive is to give you a clear, canonical guide to setting this up. We're going to unpack the two fundamental ways GHL handles email, explain the absolutely vital role of that hidden reply to header, and then
this is the key.
We're going to give you the exact, stable, custom workflow recipe you need to get that true, seamless dual visibility. Let's get into it.
Let's do it.
Okay, so before we start clicking buttons and changing settings, we really need to understand the infrastructure here. How does GHL even know that an incoming email is from contact X and belongs to campaign Y? How does it track replies?
Right, so we have to use this postal mail analogy. It's really the perfect way to illustrate the difference between what the customer sees and what the system is actually tracking.
Okay.
Every email has basically two key identifiers that act like addresses on a physical letter.
Walk us through them. What's the first one?
So first you have the from address. That's simple. It's the return address you see printed on the outside of the envelope. It looks normal, like teamyourcompany.com.
That's what the customer sees.
That's what the customer sees. But then, and this is where all the magic happens, you have the reply to address. Think of this like a special instruction card inside the envelope that says, hey, if you want a response, don't use the address on the outside. Send it here.
And in the GHL world, where is here?
Here is the GHL tracking address. This is that unique, kind of ugly-looking address that GHL controls. It's tied to Mailgun or LC email, and it'll look something like something at replies.your-subdomain.com, or maybe web at lc.google.com.
Okay, so that's the special P.O. box you were talking about.
That's the special P.O. box, exactly. The Conversations tab is your central mailroom. The GHL tracking address is that special P.O. box that only exists to receive customer replies. When a reply hits that P.O. box, GHL instantly scans it, matches it to the right conversation, and files a full message right into the Conversations tab.
Okay, so this is it. This is the crucial insight. If you're listening, this is the one rule you have to burn into your brain.
This is the core rule that decides if your automations work and if your data is clean. It's this. If replies go to the special P.O. box, the GHL tracking address, GHL captures everything, and your Conversations tab is perfect.
What?
But if replies get diverted to a normal inbox that GHL doesn't control, the system loses that native visibility. It goes blind, and you have to rely on these other more complicated sync methods to get the data back in.
So the whole reason we're even having this conversation is that the default GHL setup sends the reply to that special P.O. box, which is good for tracking, but then it completely fails to forward the actual content of the message cleanly to the client's inbox.
Exactly. It sends the link, or if you try to mess with it manually, it just bypasses GHL entirely. It's a mess.
All right, let's talk about the right way to do it. Let's look at the recommended structure first, Scenario A. The sources call this the corporate mail department analogy, where GHL is the canonical mailbox.
This is the stable foundation. This is what you should be aiming for. The outbound emails, they look totally normal to your customer. They see support at clientdomain.com. But behind the scenes, GHL silently sets that hidden reply to header to its own tracking address, usually on that LC subdomain.
And why is this the best practice? What's the real benefit for the administrator, for you?
Oh, it's all about reliability, stability, and speed. Because replies always hit the Conversations tab first, your CRM is the single source of truth. And crucially, your automations, especially that customer reply trigger, they fire instantly, every single time.
Which is everything for a sales or support team.
It's mission critical. If you depend on immediate lead follow-up, you have to have scenario A.
So what does a customer actually see when they hit reply? Do they see that weird lc.domain address and get suspicious?
Nope. Their email, client Gmail, Outlook, whatever, it just automatically fills in the to field with that tracking address when they hit reply. But the experience for them is completely normal. They hit send, and the reply just routes through the tracking address and lands right back in the GHL thread. They never even know GHL exists.
You mentioned that LC subdomain. For our listeners who are deep in the weeds with deliverability, setting up SPF and DKIM, why does GHL use that slightly separate structure, like web@lc.google.com?
Yeah, that structure is absolutely essential for deliverability. SPF and DKIM are basically digital passports for your emails. They prove to the receiving server, like Gmail, that the sender is legitimate
And not spam.
and not spam.
Yeah.
So by using the LC subdomain, GHL does two things. First, it maintains what's called aligned authentication, so that reply path is properly authorized, which keeps your emails out of the spam folder. And second, the reply capture is totally controlled by GHL, so every single reply gets logged immediately.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. So GHL points the reply to back to itself for tracking and for deliverability. But let's go back to the original problem. Even with this perfect setup, scenario A, our listener was still only getting that link-only notification. Why didn't GHL's native solution work?
And that is the critical point of friction, right? GHL does have a built-in solution for this. It's the forwarding address setting.
Just address.
Yeah, you find it under Settings, then Email Services, in the Reply and Forward settings. If you put the client's external inbox in that field, GHL is supposed to send a copy of the reply to that external address.
Wait, okay. If it sends a copy, why did our listener still get that useless link?
Because the default notification template that GHL uses for those forwarded copies is, well, it's deliberately minimalist. It's designed to omit the content and funnel you back into the CRM.
To force you to use the Conversations tab.
Exactly. So while the forwarding address setting does its job, it sends the email, it doesn't solve the content problem by default. And that's precisely why we need the custom workflow we're about to build.
Okay, let's address the alternative first, though. Scenario B, this is the home office approach. This is when the client just refuses to change their habits. They insist their traditional inbox, their Gmail, has to be the primary system of record.
Right. And if you absolutely have to go inbox first, you have to deliberately fight against GHL's core design. You have to go in and manually set the dedicated reply address in the settings to the client's personal email.
And based on that core rule we talked about earlier, what's the immediate consequence of doing that?
The consequence is immediate and pretty severe. Setting the reply address reroutes all replies away from the GHL tracking address. The message goes straight to the client's inbox, which they want. But GHL is now blind. It loses native visibility completely.
So your customer reply triggers just stop.
They stop firing instantly because GHL never sees a message hit its own P.O. box. The CRM has no idea a reply ever happened.
So to get that data back into Conversations, you have to add a whole new layer of complexity. What's the fix then?
The fix is two-way sync. This means setting up a bidirectional bridge between GHL and Gmail or Outlook, usually through their native integration. So when the reply lands in the client's inbox, the two-way sync then tries to copy it back over into GHL. It's a secondary non-native path.
I can just hear the gears grinding already. This sounds like a recipe for a data quality nightmare. You mentioned friction points. Give us a real-world example of what happens when people go down this road.
Oh, I've seen agencies try this for months and just regret it so badly. The first big issue is what I call threading weirdness. Gmail and GHL use slightly different logic to group messages into a conversation. So when the sync copies a reply over, it might just create a whole new thread in GHL instead of adding to the existing one.
And suddenly your sales reps are looking at fragmented conversations. The whole single source of truth idea is gone.
It's gone completely. And then you get duplicates. If an email has multiple recipients and they're all contacts in GHL, the sync might try to copy the message over for each one, creating duplicate entries. It's a cleanup nightmare.
And what about the automation stability we loved in scenario A?
That's probably the most damaging part. We rely on that customer reply trigger being instant. But when messages come in via two-way sync, they're often delayed or just inconsistent. The whole system has these automation gaps. Leads sit cold. And don't even get me started on attachment loss. Attachments frequently just don't sync right.
Ah.
Scenario B just adds so much complexity and risk.
Okay, so the verdict is in. Scenario A is the only stable path forward. Our listener wants both. Full reply content in their external inbox and perfect visibility in conversations. We know the native forwarding address sends the copy, but the notification template is the villain here.
Precisely. We need to stick with Scenario A as our foundation and then build a custom automation on top of it that explicitly overrides that link-only template and forces the full message payload into that external email.
All right, let's walk through the recipe, step by step, for the GHL admin listening right now. This is how we solve the whole problem.
Okay, part 1 is the foundation. We need to make sure the replies are routing correctly. So step 1, configure the forwarding address, go to Settings, then Email Services, then Reply and Forward Settings. In that forwarding address field, put the client's Google Workspace or Outlook email.
Done. Okay, so that ensures GHL gets the reply first and sends a copy.
A copy, yes. And now the copy is routing, but it's still that useless link. So we need to build our new, more powerful notification. Part 2, the custom workflow. We are not going to rely on GHL's default notification system at all. We're going to use that customer replied event to trigger a brand new email that we control 100%. So, step 2, create the workflow. Go to Automation, then Workflows, and create a new workflow from scratch.
And the trigger for that workflow.
Step 3, set the trigger to customer reply. And this is important. Make sure you filter it by channel equals email. You only want this to fire on inbound emails, not texts or missed calls.
Got it. Now for the action that actually replaces that bad default notification.
Right. Step 4, add the send email action. Now we're using the send email action, not a user notification action. This is crucial because send email gives us total control over the content.
Okay, and who are we sending it to?
You set the Talsi email field to that external inbox address, the same one you just put in the forwarding address setting.
Hang on, does that mean we're sending the client 2 emails now? The native forwarded copy and this new one from the workflow?
Potentially, yes. But the native one is easily ignored. This new email, you're going to title it something clear, like New Reply from Contact Name. And now for the real magic. Step 5. The crucial detail content mapping.
This is the part we cannot gloss over. This is the whole thing.
This is the entire solution. In the email body of your new send email action, you have to use a very specific custom value. This is the little piece of code that pulls the actual content of the customer's reply. That value is message.body.
Okay, let me repeat that. 2 curly braces, message.body, 2 curly braces.
That's the one. That little token dynamically maps the full text content, the payload of the customer's reply, right into your custom notification. Without that exact variable, it won't work. This one step transforms that notification from a useless link into a fully readable, actionable email that lands instantly in your client's inbox.
So, to recap, this dual configuration gives us everything. The reply to header ensures GHL tracks the message natively. That's Scenario A stability. The custom workflow fires instantly off the customer replied trigger. And by using the send email action with message.body, we force the external inbox to get the full reply text. Mission accomplished, stability maintained.
We've done it. We've mapped the GHL mailroom and resolved that conflict. We've made it clear why the stable forwarding address is so much better than the disruptive reply address, which just throws you into the complexity of two-way sync. And most importantly, we've given you that custom workflow recipe with the critical message.body mapping to solve the actual content problem.
So the fundamental choice for anyone running GHL is really between prioritizing that stability and native automation with Scenario A, or prioritizing an old external inbox workflow with Scenario B and all of its headaches. And this recipe means you don't have to choose. You get the most reliable version of both.
Exactly. We've solved the immediate technical problem, the visibility problem. But what's really exciting is that this success opens up the door to becoming a true power user. Now that you have a stable, reliable, customer-applied trigger, you control the entire data flow. The next level of mastery is to use workflow branching and conditional logic.
What does that look like in practice? Give me an example.
Well, imagine setting up branches inside that same workflow. You could automatically route replies differently based on contact data. For instance, if a contact has the tag VIP client, you could have the workflow forward their reply not just to the inbox, but also as an SMS notification straight to a manager's phone.
Oh, okay.
But if the contact tag is, say, new lead, maybe the system skips the email notification entirely and just triggers a create task action for a junior sales rep to follow up.
So you're turning a simple copy and paste process into a smart, self-sorting inbox manager. That's where the real automation value kicks in.
That's it. Don't just make the message visible. Use that reliable trigger to dictate what happens next and base it on who sent it. That's the next level.
Excellent food for thought. Thank you for guiding us through this GHL labyrinth and for delivering that critical recipe. To our listener, go build that custom workflow and enjoy the peace of mind that comes with dual visibility. We'll see you on the next deep dive.